A few weeks ago, we released a podcast with one Professor Dom Garcia about the oh-so-pleasant topic of why Christian movies suck. It's nearly an entire hour long, and I would say it's one of my favorite podcasts that we've done, and you should definitely check it out. Now, in the last few minutes of the podcast, I make known my admittedly extreme opinion about how studios like PureFlix create films that do more harm to our Christian witness than good for the kingdom. In response, Dom said this.
At the end of the day, people are going to make what they want to make. It's our job to make good art to counter it. This is now a call to arms in a sense. Like this is hopefully to inspire young people or anybody. I don't care who you are. Our job isn't to tell PureFlix to stop. Our job is to go make great art and to make sure that it gets out there and people engage with it and get excited about it and proclaim the gospel and maybe create something unique.
And he's right. As much as I would love to spend an entire series talking about the faults of Christian cinema, and trust me, I could talk for hours, the best thing we could do to fix the problem is to teach as many people as we can how to create effective, powerful, godly stories with the medium of film. So today, let's talk about how to make Christian movies that don't suck. Welcome to Blackbar. Thanks so much for the Patreons who helped make this video possible. If you want to learn how to support the channel, check out the link in the description below. Hi, I'm Caleb, and I'm not going to be spending today talking about the technicalities of what camera you should buy or what lighting you should use. We're going to be talking about the story itself. Like we talked about in the podcast, people are making engaging content with their phones in their houses these days. You don't need a red epic to spread the gospel, and anybody who tells you otherwise hasn't realized the power of great storytelling. Instead, we're going to talk about 3 things to keep in mind when you're writing your stories that I believe will improve everything that you do. First, write what you know. All right, this might seem a little obvious, but it actually happens quite a bit, and it's incredibly obvious when it does. Let me give you an example. I, Caleb Weidman, and stick with me here, have never tried meth before. I've never even seen meth before. I wouldn't know where to find it. I wouldn't know where to get it. I wouldn't even have any idea of how much it costs. And to my knowledge, I've never even had a friend who has any of that knowledge. Do you know what would happen if I tried to make a show like Breaking Bad? That's like the whole premise of the show. Can you tell a compelling story using that as a set piece? Of course you can. Am I the guy to do it? Absolutely not. The problem is Christian films often use these plot devices and settings to try to reach people who have gone through those issues. Telling a compelling story requires fundamentally understanding not just the characters of the story, but the setting, the plot devices, and the props that are used throughout. I personally don't want to try to risk telling a redemptive story about someone suffering with depression or bipolar disorder and misrepresenting those things to my audience. Those aren't things I've gone through before. Those are things that I don't understand because I haven't gone through those personally. And the person I have the greatest risk of offending is exactly the person the movie is supposedly built to reach. I'm not necessarily saying that you have to be a full-blown expert on every topic that you're writing about to write a film about it, but at the very least, you should be running your scripts past people who are. Subculture, identity, and lifestyle are things that people hold very closely. Mess those things up, and you're more likely to get laughed out of the theater than actually make an impact with them.
Who are those people?
Those are the RPGers. We've been trying to get them thrown off campus for years, but they're just too popular.
Number 2, love your characters. One of my biggest qualms with the current state of Christian cinema is that often Christian films position unbelievers, the lost, our mission, as antagonists in their films. In practice, this does way more to draw battle lines between believers and unbelievers than legitimately offering those with alternative viewpoints a new perspective. Representation is everything, and I'm not just talking about representation in terms of race. If the character that I identify with the most in a film is painted as a one-dimensional, mustache-twirling, ludicrous antagonist,
all I have for him is hate.
Do you think I'm honestly gonna give 1 second of thought to the message the film was trying to convey? Of course not. I mean, this happens all the time on the other side. Christians in secular films are often painted as one-dimensional lunatics, spouting off scripture delusionally and telling people to pray their problems away. The only difference between secular films that do this and Christian films that do this is that secular films aren't promoting their movies as evangelical tools. How do we combat this stereotype? We love our neighbors, and that's including our characters. It's absolutely fine and normal to have an antagonist in your film, but those antagonists aren't just bad guys.
You are a bad guy, but this does not mean you're a bad guy.
I mean, come on guys, this is basic scripture 101. Our fight is not against flesh and blood. The antagonist in your film should be doing what they're doing for a reason. The best antagonists don't think that they're antagonists. They have things that they love. They have hopes and dreams. They have a personality. Heck, they have an Enneagram number. The more you can humanize the representation of the world you're trying to reach, the safer they'll feel to connect with your art and process it fairly. Number 3, questions over answers. Listen carefully on this one. It is always more productive to get your audience to question their own beliefs than it is to get your audience to know yours. I would rather have an audience going to bed that night thinking, I wonder if God exists, than that movie told me that God exists. Do you see the difference? In general, Christian cinema seems largely more concerned with making sure people leave the theater with the right answers than the right questions. Now, I'm not saying that the right answers aren't important, and I'm certainly saying that we shouldn't talk about them. But the way that art communicates with people effectively is very different from the way that sermons communicate with people effectively. This is honestly something I think that Christians can learn from the postmodern art movement. Don't worry, you don't need any art history lessons here. We, as Christians, often have an intended goal, message, or answer in mind before our paint hits the canvas. The art piece serves pretty much only as the vehicle for the message we're trying to convey. This is obviously how sermons work. Alternatively, postmodernists believe that engaging with art should not be a linear experience. In a sense, the question should be asked, but the answer to that question should be determined by the viewer. Metaphorically speaking, we should be giving them the keys to the vehicle and letting them drive where they want. When we predetermine the destination of the art, we rob the viewer of the opportunity to interpret it. Seekers are made by giving everyday people the right questions. Everybody has answers. Everybody has opinions. But if we believe as Christians that we have the right answers, there should be no danger in asking the right questions. I was born and raised a Christian. Every educational institution I learned at after elementary school was a Christian institution. I was given the right answers from the day I was born, but it wasn't until I personally started asking the right questions that my faith and my walk became real to me. Being absolutely honest with you, it wasn't Christian art that was encouraging me to ask those questions. It was a lot of secular art. It was a lot of philosophy. I can clearly remember music, movies, and visual art that made a massive impact on my personal walk that were made by non-Christians and even anti-Christians. Now, I don't regret a single second of my walk, and I'm glad that I'm the person I am now because of it. But I have to wonder how much time I would have saved if the art that was encouraging me to ask those questions was created by Christian artists encouraging the conversation and facilitating a place to discuss that talk safely. Offer questions, not answers. Though the current state of Christian cinema is something I would regard as generally unacceptable, I do have immense hope for a new generation of content creators and filmmakers and young people finding ways to tell inspired, anointed stories through the medium of film. If you are one of those individuals looking to bounce your ideas off other creative Christians, make sure to join our Discord. We'd be happy to help you walk through your problems, present solutions, and help you build something awesome. Thanks so much for watching this episode of Blackbar. If you haven't already, make sure to check out the Blackbar podcast, released every single week, where we go more into depth into the topics we talk about in these videos. In addition, if you would like to join the Blackbar volunteer team and help make content or help other struggling churches on our Discord, make sure to check out the link in the description below. Make sure to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next week.